Good afternoon. Welcome to Henley Business School. We are coming to you from Johannesburg as well as from the UK. We have Norbert Moravec with us. This is our very last SME session of the current installment. It is chilly in Joburg, which is kind of okay, I guess, because it's winter. But Norbert, you say that it is chilly up there in the UK as well. What's up with that? It's supposed to be summer.
It is also absolutely chilly up here. The summer has taken a summer pause, basically. I think it's moved on to somewhere else where it's warmer, not here. But it's good. We're always we're still welcoming bouts of bad weather, because it means we're sort of currently in a semi-lockdown. So we're out of real lockdown, but we're not really unlocked yet. We're unclear what the situation is, and so the longer everybody, I think, is happy. Sometimes when the weather is very good, where everyone wants to get together and go out, but we're not really sure whether it's safe yet. So it's I don't know. We on the 15th of June, shops will open here as well. I think that's when the good weather will be back. So this is another 4 days of just making it easier to stay inside and watch Netflix, which is what typically happens here in the afternoon period at 3 o'clock. Typically, the broadband starts to deteriorate all across the streets and the country as people take off early, and so I think start to stream all kinds of shows and things that they watch. At least that's a pattern that I've observed around where I live. That's the time when suddenly the lines crash. But very good to be back with you. So what's the degree count in South Africa at the moment? Where are you at with your weather? I'm sure that's a really good question. We can beat that.
That's a really good question. I'm gonna peg it at about 12 degrees, but maybe I'm a little bit chilly. But I would like to ask anybody and everybody that's with us today. We really want to make this interactive today, don't we, Norbert? This is a talk show, and that means not just us, but everybody that's here. So if you can give us a sense of what you think the weather's like, where you are at, how many degrees do you think it is? How many knots would you pick the wind at? I'm trying to have a look at through my window. I haven't the faintest idea. But let's also perhaps hear from, I wonder if we can bring Valencia up. Valencia, are you able to come on screen? Valencia is one of the team members on our side that has been helping to make this whole thing happen. And I would love for you to meet her. So if she can bring herself on screen, we'll see in a moment. She's been having connectivity issues. We'll make it happen. But Norbert, please give us a sense of what you want us to do today, how you want us to run the show, where do we start, and then we can take it from there.
So, I mean, as you said, so this is the last one, as I understand. So we thought we'd just open it up completely, and we'll more or less run this like a talk radio show, or like an open town hall. In a way. So we are here, you're here, collectively we're all super smart, and we wanted to talk through maybe some new business ideas, challenges that you have, share some of our existing experience across the board, but this is really meant to be very participative and bring you into the conversation. So we'll open the microphone slots for you, or if you want to just type on the chat. But we're here to answer your questions, talk with you, and really deal with any kind of problems, ideas that you have on this. Broadly speaking, we're still in the realm of starting a business as a non-techie, so we can draw on all of that. But we have got a number of people here in the room who are all very experienced. And so I think the idea is really that we're going to try to facilitate a bit of knowledge exchange and a conversation here.
Beautiful. So 2 things then, everybody. If you've got something that you want us to talk about, if you have a business idea, if you have a business challenge, if there's something in the digital realm that you want us to touch on, please share that thought, share that idea using either chat or the Q&A function. And then if you have an idea, if you have something that you would like to add, In the part, if you I think you should be able to show a little green hand by way of raising a hand. If you do that, then what we will try and do on our side, Kahelo, in the background, please be on standby. We're going to try and bring you up on screen, or we can just bring you up on voice if that's easier. And we'll make you part of the conversation. How's that? Fantastic. So,
excellent.
No, but before we start with anybody else, let's talk about you. So you talked to us a little bit on Monday about that process of taking a business through an incubator and what that is like. So you've taken a business called potentially through an incubator. Won't you share with us what that business is about and what that experience of taking it through an incubator was like for you? Highlights, lowlights, challenges. Yeah, we love the gory stories. We're not so big on the glory stories. Give us the dirt.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just to sort of like bring us a bit into context. So this is now probably, I think, 2.5 years back, I think, since we went through this experience. The Tech Accelerator program that we went through was called WERA, which is run or sponsored by a big telecoms organization called Telefonica. And Telefonica kind of like started to create this accelerator program at the time when sort of WhatsApp became very popular, and they sort of looked at WhatsApp and thought, okay, well, here's a company, and that company has 50 employees, and it just got sold for 18 billion to Facebook, and that more or less was the market capitalization approaching Telefonica on their end, and they had put all this hard work in of digging cables all across the world, building up hardcore and expensive telecoms infrastructure with tens of thousands of employees. And so they thought, well, what's going on here in the startup space? Companies grow very quickly. We have to figure this out as well. And they launched this accelerator program, which was one of the top sort of accelerator programs here in the UK. And as a process, it was a 9 month process where they had put us up 20 startups, selected 40s, and so they were selecting 20 startups in a cohort every 9 months, and very swanky offices in central London, everything that you can imagine, always beer on tap and free pizzas being delivered on an ongoing basis, every evening some sort of event or party. So huge distractions as well, and a lot of good fun. All the usual startup perks, from table foosball to table tennis. And there's a space that also put a lot of care into this, which I think was brilliant. So they were kind of like movable pods, which they had got an interior designer to decorate. There were black walls, which were all white walls, but black, so you could write on them. And every startup started off there, typically 1 or 2 people in the startup. But those pods, they could grow with your company. So that at the end, most companies ended up somewhere between 8 to 10 people, and they could accommodate it. So the space was growing with them. The pod around you was growing as you started to put drawings, plans, business pipeline on the wall, start to decorate it, make this your home and your office. So, and that was one of the key things that this program also offered in this sense, space, and which is at a premium, of course, in London. And this was certainly a fantastic space. But yeah, we were very excited, I guess, to start off with, to get into this program, because we had tried to get into this program the year before and failed. I had reapplied then after putting more work in, and it was very competitive. So there were over 500, the first time round, over 3,000 applications for this. We made it to the finalists, last 30, then didn't get in the following year, still over 800 applications. And they picked, in this second round, they initially picked 13 companies and also our company, which was then called Team Match. And so we got into this startup program. And of course, the first thing that happened was that we had a falling out in the team. One of the co-founders didn't want to come full-time, while at the same time wanting to maintain all of his shares. And he kind of like went a little bit strange. And so we were left, which happened throughout the whole startup program, something to say. Nearly every startup experienced at one point or another issues with the co-founding team. And so there were big lessons to be learned in a way around that, into how to be cleverer in a way about how you can make sure that people are committed in your startup team and sort of take it forward. So that was kind of like a first bump that we hit there, that we managed to solve really quickly. And then it's off to go and find customers and build the product. And yeah, so that's the glory of being part of a Tech Accelerator program, is of course that you can leverage the brand name that comes with it as well, and the goodwill. So our company, and I think most other companies as well, they were able, just by being in this very nice space and being part of this program, to attract some very good people to join our company for partially for free or for very low salary initially, because they wanted to be part of something which is very exciting. And that's something that was also hugely beneficial. I did say on Monday already that your company has to be ready to absorb all of that. You have to be able to absorb all of those networks that you're getting, those opportunities that come through the door. We weren't at all ready for this initially, so it took us a couple of weeks to just get up to speed, build up the team to be able to take advantage of that. A very hectic period. I mean, tremendous fun throughout, but it was also really, really hectic in terms of like getting there. So, I mean, I don't want to ramble on, but I mean, it was generally one of the best times I can remember being part of that experience, despite the other thing to say, but this is different between programs, but there was a hell of a lot of pitching going on as part of this program. So there was a lot of pitch training, but there was constant pitching going on. So you had to pitch your startup left, square, and center all the time. So yeah, which is good practice, but it also gets exhausting at some point. But it was good stuff. What else can I say? I mean, we came out of this process then, and we felt like we had moved away from our extended family, because we had made very good friends with all the other startups, and this cohort feel of being together and going through a similar experience was fantastic. It's similar to what you, I guess, experience if you take part of in an MBA program where you sort of go through this. But we were very lucky then that we grouped together with a couple of other startups and continued that experience in a joint co-working space for a longer period afterwards as well, which was again really good. Overall, in terms of our cohort, a few years later, I have to say that most of the companies, so of those 13 companies that started at the same time as us, most of them died. So they faded away. Some of them, one or two, died an early death already during the program, where people gave up. Second round, maybe sort of in the second year, where people couldn't necessarily make their startup work, and then it just faded away as well. One company was an outlier, fantastic founding team. They managed to attract 2 million in funding already during the program. So that was a big success, and largely due to one founder who was very well networked. And I think sort of like observing those guys, very strong co-founder team, one person focusing entirely on the product, and the other person, the other co-founder, focused nearly entirely only on fundraising. And they really put themselves out there. So they spoke with, I think they spoke with well over 50 to 60 venture capital companies. They shopped around in a highly professional manner and dedicated months, really months, this person full-time just talking about raising funding. So that was excellent to observe. I mean, as a startup game played, extremely professional and well done. So I wouldn't underestimate if you can do that yourself or bring someone on board to do that. that company ultimately, I think, also didn't succeed to maybe the degree that they would have liked to succeed, but they're certainly still around today and doing well. As are maybe 4 or 5 other companies. We're among them. We're still around. We're kind of like cash flow positive. We might be looking at a bout of growth over the next 1 or 2 years, amplified through other areas. But we also changed direction hugely from what we were doing when we were in the startup accelerator and what we're doing now to a degree. So we went through a lot of pivots, as they're called, since being there. And yeah, it's been a good journey.
Wow. It really is a remarkable story, and it sounds like an absolutely incredible experience, Norbert. So you've got this foot in academia on the one side, and then you have this other foot still in this post-startup world, this world of entrepreneurship. How do you balance the two?
Well, I mean, for me, this is very mutually beneficial, because I'm teaching entrepreneurship, and so of course the students want to know also the real stuff that's going on there. So I think especially in entrepreneurship, we always have to have in some ways some connection with what's going on in the real business world, and a little bit of an entrepreneurial mindset ourselves, which helps with the credibility, but also with developing students' business ideas. And especially since so many business ideas today, they involve a degree of technology and acceleration, and there are certain patterns of building this thing. So I think it's very beneficial to be able to have firsthand of experience of going through this as well. I mean, with a Henley Business School, so sort of entrepreneurship hat on teaching this, I have to say, we're always very often also encouraging students to go and start businesses, and of course I do this, and I keep forgetting how hard it really is and what a long journey it is. But it is good to have that experience and to know that there is a lot of hard grind, that everything takes 2, 3, 4 times as long as you thought it would take, that you're always over optimistic, and that you need to motivate yourself over and over again to keep going. But at the end of the day, it's in a way, it's a way of life, and I think a very good one. So I think it's very beneficial. It also means that we can draw on case studies, and we have connections with businesses. As you have done in South Africa as well, Henley here is really sitting in a business hub as well, surrounded by fast-growing SMEs and scale-ups, and that gives us a very vibrant business community, and very beneficial to sort of understand this firsthand as well.
Beautiful.
But yeah.
Thank you so much. Jermaine, who has been with us from the very start of this journey, shares a very, very interesting message, which I would like to share with you as a message, and then also as a question. And then Jermaine, if you would like to come up on screen, just pop us a note and we will try and make that happen from the background. Jermaine says, these SME sessions on how to pivot have been absolutely invaluable. Thank you so much. After completing the course, I came up with an entirely new business concept in travel and tourism in the industry with 2 industry colleagues in the United States. Now, can we just please give you a standing ovation for starters, which is absolutely phenomenal and hugely encouraging. I would love to share this, but due to industry competitors, I'm a little reluctant to do so. I think that's very sage. Yes. We have to find our purpose, complete 70% of the business plan, and are now at this stage of trying to find a .com domain, which is proving absolutely impossible. In addition to this, we are still stuck in getting this company to an online platform. Do you have any advice of who we should talk to get to the next level? And then Dave Prentice asks, why is getting a .com domain tough? Why is this proving a challenge? What are your thoughts on these 2 questions?
Okay, well, first of all, fully on board with you. So it's excellent that you're starting to think about this business idea, and also fully understand that you don't want to share sort of like all of the details around this. Yeah, and sort of like to David's point, why is a .com domain proving tough to find, and also why is it important for your business? So first of all, I would say, and this is an ongoing debate everywhere with sort of like, do we have to have a .com domain or not? Generally, across the board, most, especially if it's something consumer facing, there is still the old .com domain carries a tremendous value and makes you seem very legitimate. I've experimented with all kinds of other domain endings as well, especially if you're on the more technical end of things. You will often find services that end in .io, .ly, .net, .org, this kind of things. And it's also worthwhile considering that with many sort of in the whole technology ecosystem, if you're on the web, you're .com, but very often these days, sooner or later, you're also moving towards an app where you, of course, you don't have domain name endings, but you just have your brand name. And with your brand name, then very often the nicest ones, if in some way it's at all possible to stay sort of in 5 or 6 characters, that's of course fantastic. Or if it's a word that makes sense, so a word that's maybe consisting of 2 words that you've put together, then most of those domains tend to be bought up. So you are hitting, I really understand that most names just seem to be taken, and it's everything that I've done. Many times I've just sat there in front of the screen, maybe with a paper, and hammered things into one of those domain registration services like GoDaddy or Name.com to check whether that domain is still available, only to find that they are gone. There are domain buying services as well, or auction services, so things like Sedo.com, SEDO.com. I'll just maybe put it into the chat as well, where you can maybe find some reasonably priced .com domains around keywords that you might find in travel as well. So check maybe if there is, you can find some inspiration there. But yeah, I would encourage you to maybe continue brainstorming until you maybe come up with a word that describes what you do or is related to what you're trying to do, but has a slightly different take on it. We have seen also, especially with a younger audience, by adding a flicker to a service, or making a lift with an Y instead of an I, you can come up and create new brand names and terms and words, and it does tend to go down quite well with the audience. Just be creative in terms of like putting words together. If that's all not working, you might have to go with if you really want a .com domain, you might have to buy a .com, but try to get it cheap off something like Sedo. And if all of that doesn't really work, then be bold and go with a non .com domain. Go with a .travel, or with a .club, with a .net. You know, there's lots of other endings as well. Especially initially, I wouldn't worry too much about that. When you get going, it doesn't need to be perfect. A little bit down the line, when you've got a bit of traction, you might very well find an investor who goes and says, well, here, have some money, and let's get that premium domain for X amount of money. I remember a Bitcoin business last year buying, I think it was social.com for $1 million as a domain. They have not done anything since with it. Maybe they'll sell that cheap in 2 months. So, but yeah, have a look at Sedo.com and see if anything. And just be creative about it as well. The domain name doesn't necessarily need to say what it does. You know, what does Google mean? Nothing. Okay, it means Googling. Oh, okay, let's not go into the Google name, but a lot of brand names out there. Apple's got nothing to do with apples, right? Facebook is not really a book full of faces. There's all kinds of. Once you've established the brand name, and if it's consistently branded, a travel service could be called anything. .world, yeah, why not? If I travel, could be. The other thing to say is that some of those domain services, name.com, for example, is a quite good one on this one. GoDaddy, of course, as well, but their recommendation engines are quite good in picking out alternative domain names as well, and basically have an algorithm suggest something that I've found useful for myself in the past as well is basically just going to thesaurus.com, dropping the word that you want to use in, looking at all of those antonyms, synonyms, click through them, and then just cobble something together. So that's a pretty good approach to finding a new brand name. Thesaurus.com, just whatever you want to say that it your ideal name, and see what synonyms are and cobble something together.
Stunning idea. So the one idea to still explore is Thesaurus, and the other one was the auction site. Won't you please put that in the chat for us, Norbert? Thank you.
Sure.
Do.
There's a couple. Sado.com is probably the main one. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. So Norbert, you ran a little survey, and on that survey there were a couple of business ideas, business questions. How about we tackle one or two of those ideas as discussion points? What have you got for us?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's pick out one, and then I want to ask you about your idea here as well, Luis, if I may.
I feel nervous, but I shall go for it. If nobody comes up with a better idea, by the way,
okay.
This is about these guys.
Okay, so we've had one comment here, and that is really from a group of people who are partners in property renovation, and they've got a classic business of flip and sell and rent businesses, and they want to know how they can bring that into the digital world. And if you're on here today as well, then maybe tell us something about this yourself, if you're here. Whoever sort of submitted this.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and discuss as a case.
Okay, so this is an interesting one, and there could be a couple of ideas in a way how we could look at that. It's a very traditional business. In a way, you might say it's a brick and mortar business as it can be, renovating flats and houses and then selling them. So what could be a digital take on this? To some degree, we're looking at probably the marketing side of this once it's finished. But before we go there, maybe we can look at some other ideas of how we could just innovate that business model itself. And maybe one idea around that could be to introduce some sharing economy business model for this as well. And I've seen some sort of experiments around this in the US, and also starting in the UK now, where effectively people are quite interested to invest in this kind of business propositions as well, right? So if you're somebody who can come in and renovate a house and sell it afterwards, you have to maybe buy the house first and then sell it after, which means there's a capital outlay that you have to go through, and there might be some money that you have to put into buying the materials and also labor. Now it seems that that brick and mortar investment is very attractive for a lot of people. They do want to invest in the property market. So a not super, but a slightly more innovative take on this could be that you approach this from a crowdfunding perspective in a way. So you could look at building some sort of internet platform also where you effectively allow investors to pool money and take a share in those properties that you then refurbish, and they will then participate again to some degree in the profit that comes from selling them or renting them out. But rather than maybe going through a traditional process or you having to carry all the risk, you can distribute that risk a bit by using or maybe thinking of building this on an internet platform system, which probably wouldn't be too complicated, but there are regulatory matters to consider, which again are not which are hurdles that can be overcome with a little bit of work. So that's maybe something that you could think about, how you actually go about running that whole business. And there seems to be a lot of investors who are interested in investing into property, but also at smaller tranches. Rather than them having to buy an entire house, they could just invest a couple of hundreds or thousands in this way. So that's kind of on the property crowdfunding end of things. The other side of this is of course with marketing, selling or renting out this side of the business. So there is you've got I don't know what the situation is in South Africa with property businesses that do that already in terms of listing property, promoting property. If there isn't anything, then, or if the competition is not strong, that tends to be a gold mine if you can get in there as a platform. If platforms already exist, and presumably you're already marketing yourself through this. The other thing that maybe you could do is if you're doing some work around this, it's really cheap to document whatever you do digitally. So, and then also promote the work that you're doing as a company through Instagram, TikTok, whatever channels are going at the moment, just to show people that you're doing a good job on that. And that will also make the sales easier, because it builds credibility and trust with your company, and you just stand out from everybody else, which then will hopefully also help with further deal flow, people contacting you about other projects they want you to get involved in. And I would just sort of like play around with these kind of things. So that's a sort of like a few ideas around that.
Very, very interesting. Thank you. It is very interesting, and I've been fascinated by how fast we've had to think about and challenge our orthodoxies around how certain businesses can or cannot be in particular spaces, and how smartly people have made those shifts, how innovatively. It's also been interesting for me. One of my personal experiences has been around working from this particular space at home, but really getting reach into countries with people and conversations that I haven't necessarily had before in the same way. So I feel like I've been orchestrating my universe in a completely different way from this particular space. So it's as though our relationship with space and with possibility has shifted through this COVID pandemic in a particular way.
Yeah, and hopefully in a beautiful way like that, where you open your mind to new possibilities that previously you didn't maybe have the time or to look and perceive, but now you see that there are many things that are possible. And although we are all restricted, we're still finding that things are possible, and we reach maybe even more people than before. There are different ways to bridge across, and that's really a good thing in a way that it comes out of this. On the previous case, I just remembered two other things that I wanted to say on this. One of my former graduates just gone off and become a co-founder for a mobile app called Lick, which is off-the-shelf. They've taken some off-the-shelf e-commerce software and they've called themselves a Lick. And what they're doing is they're selling paint, because so many people want to redecorate their houses now because they're stuck at home. And business has just taken off crazily here in the UK with people buying paint. Something that maybe before, you wouldn't think about, oh, I'm going to start a paint shop. And I think one of the key things here to mention is with a lot of digital businesses, if you can make it, if you think of your own app use, typically the apps that do one thing well, or a brand name that does one thing well, they tend to succeed. And so in this case, it's almost a perfect example. You give it a fresh lick of paint. It's just about paint. They don't sell anything else. They're known for that, and that's something that cuts through on e-commerce or on app stores, because it's a single purpose thing. It does it well, and that's often better than coming and trying to do too many things at the same time. Last year, we also had an interesting student business here, where someone came in from a family business background from Ireland, and the family was in the lime business. So they were using lime to renovate old castles. And they got contracts from all over the world to sort of ship their lime, which they themselves sourced from somewhere in France, but then they packaged them up into nice packages that had a British, an Irish brand on it with a nice tower on it. And it sort of ended up this nice lime that comes from Ireland, although it came from France, effectively shipped it all around the world. But a very traditional business, it hadn't grown at all. And the young chap who sort of joined us took over this side of the family business, and he ran an Instagram campaign. Just although initially none of those people would have been on Instagram, and just started to sort of document different renovation works. He got one of the workers, very established worker that had been working with them for years, quite a character to just share how they're doing things, sharing tool tips on how they can use this. And so many business opportunities came off that for that business, and the requests from different parts of the world that they had never reached before. And it was really great to see. And they managed to double that turnover in that unit within that year that he was with us. And so it was a really, really nice story in a way. So I wouldn't underestimate what maybe often is seen as a bit of vainglorious social media. It can make a big difference.
I think you're so right. I have definitely reimagined my own home. I'm just about ready for like a half an hour or an hour consult with somebody that knows something about putting the stuff together, right?
Yeah.
So we have a fantastic question here from Chiara Ramklas, also one of our regulars. And she says, hi, I run a marimba company called Marimba Jam. Our main source of income is teaching school marimba bands, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. Since the start of lockdown, we've come up with a few ideas to pivot our offering. For example, we've developed a lockdown.jam distance learning program. I mean, this is just phenomenal. Wow. As a lifeboat for the past 2 months, it doesn't look like marimba bands will return this year, and we've now developed a summer camp program to offer to the USA, UK, and Canadian market, and we are looking to offer virtual team building sessions for corporates.
Brilliant.
Chiara, serious shout out. This is incredible stuff. I think you need to connect with me offline. I think Henley, from an immersion point of view, should be doing some of this, what you're doing with you. We do a lot of immersive work in our classes, and this is just phenomenal. I mean, on your side, but can you imagine bringing this and this kind of energy into a classroom? Phenomenal stuff. Alongside these service-based offerings, we have also been trying to develop a product which will act like a beat pad practice mat for the marimba. We are stuck on what the way forward is in terms of how to get this idea to market. Chiara, if you want us to bring you up on screen, we're happy to do that. So please let us know, pop us a note. But in the meantime, Norbert, flex those creative neurons and tell us a little bit more. What pops for you? What do we do here? What's next?
Well, first of all, it's really great to see how you've very creatively pivoted your company and tried to make the best out of the situation. I wouldn't underestimate the potential for just the e-learning side of this business, where you offer marimba training online into all kinds of different parts of the world. To what degree this could catch on, and as well also contact me afterwards as well. I'm doing this thing called Class of 2020 here in the UK, which reaches a lot of graduates and young people and businesses, and this is also something that we could promote on this, and where you can look to monetize this as well with in some ways to just earn some money from teaching online. And of course you could teach quite large classes here as well. Now on the second side, so that's really interesting with this idea of creating a marimba beat pad. So this is that's where it would be good to ask you a few questions around that, in terms of like how you think this would work. So is this something that's a physical product that you're looking to develop? Is there any technology built in that? So I don't know if is Chiara here? Could we ask her some questions back?
It would be fantastic to bring you up on screen, at least, even if we can just bring you up on voice. So I'm going to ask Kahela to see if you can help us with that. But otherwise, if that's not comfortable for you, if you will just pop through some notes on the Q&A, that would also be great. Although Chiara has had some...
Hello?
There we go. We've got you. Thanks, Kiara. Welcome.
Hi, nice to see you. Okay, I'll put my video on for a second. I'm in my pajamas, but hi, everyone.
Everyone is in his pajamas these days. Just puts on a pullover on top and stays in pajamas. Right? And from here on, it's always pajamas.
Yeah, so we are looking to add tech into this practice mat. So that's the point, is it can just be like a rollout type of mat, maybe like similar to a yoga type of mat. And you can play it, because part of what we do is we don't teach how to read music. We use rhythm and muscle memory to teach our kids. So just that physical practicing on a mat that can just, like, technology is going to be part of that, definitely, in order to get the sound. And we are looking at also working on a marimba app that can then connect to the mat at a later
That was my next question, really. I get, so it sounds like so the app is slightly easier to develop than the product, but this sounds like something that that you should, if you haven't done this already, get some concept designs done in a way, and get some nice looking concept stills in a way done. This sounds something that could work extremely well on a crowdfunding platform, to be honest, because it is a consumer product, and this kind of category of music products, partially, I don't know to what degree this is aimed at children or at the general public, but this is something that would work extremely well on it, and this kind of product ideas, I think this would work extremely well for that. So in that case, what you have to do is just to get someone to do you some really nice mock-ups of what the actual thing would look like, get some idea of what it would cost you to produce a prototype. And so again, probably a product designer or someone at the university works in product design would be able to connect you with maybe some students who can help with costing this up, and also looking at what the resourcing of this could look like. Then you could figure out in terms of like where you could produce a prototype for this. But before you do that, it's mostly about having one of those prototypes or a concept for it, and doing a nice video for it, and maybe launching it on a crowdfunding campaign to sort of validate. And the positive thing there is that people would pre-buy from you. So I don't know if you have an idea what it would cost. Do you have an idea where you would like to?
No, I think that's the part, is like we've never had to do a product before. So I think the pricing was also, we had no clue.
Yeah. So it sounds like, I think what you need to do is work out who would be your ideal customer for this, do you think?
It would definitely start with our children that we teach. We teach over 500 kids on a weekly basis, and none of them can actually take a marimba home. It's like the one instrument that the school owns, and you get to play on once a week. So this would also be a way, because for our
the marimba
kids.
Is also huge and otherwise very expensive. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if the mat could work, if the mat can work in a way quite nicely around it, maybe sort of start from the other way around and work out how much you think a family would spend on a mat, and also work out what your market is. Presumably there's quite a big market across the world in a way for this, so work that out. Try to work out in terms of like what kind of like could be the market base for this, and then also sort of like work out how big the market could be based on how expensive it is. If this is something that as a business model, if it's still expensive, but it's something that a school buys for a few hundred and then sort of lends it to different students and during different weeks, that is a different business model that you could also explore. And also, I mean, a lot of schools also in the UK, across Europe, US, they will also probably buy this kind of things as well, so that you could explore a B2B business model. If it's a B2C direct business model, it would have to be a lot cheaper. The app on the flip side of things would be much easier to do, and maybe I'm not a product designer here, but you could certainly look at a combination of doing the app where sort of all the more clever stuff sits, and just have a kind of like tactile mat where you can do the more physical stuff on that. That's kind of like connected with each other, in which case the whole thing becomes a lot cheaper to make and distribute as well. So the mat itself wouldn't have to be too expensive then, and any kind of music or sort of the clever stuff is done on the app. And there it's then mainly a question of developing this specific app. As far as I know, there's a couple of software libraries that deal with music and around music apps. So there will be companies that can produce that at a reasonable price as well. I think the way forward would be to talk with a product designer in a way, maybe someone from a university. It's a really nice product idea that I can see work really well, and either sell via schools or sell directly to consumer, where people feel like that could be marimba. That's the next big thing to learn.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, if that's helpful, then okay, great. And I really want to see that. That would be a fantastic business to have.
Yeah, for sure. Please stay in touch with us. So, Chiara, before you go away, Dave Prentice asks, where are you based? Dave, I know he's in the Midlands, I think. Chiara says she's in Cape Town. And then, Chiara, there was another comment, and I think you'll pick that up on the Q&A from Tommy Radebe, who says that he's seen a flexible keyboard on the market, which sounds very similar to what you're talking about, which is also an interesting comment. I've asked to see if he can find it on Google. Let's see if he'll do some research for us. But otherwise, I'm sure we can find it. That is just such a brilliant idea. I feel completely
100%.
inspired.
Okay, Louise, I think it's time for you to share something with us here.
I'm not going to get away from this. Okay. All right. I am on the spot. I have not had pitch training. Can I do that as a disclaimer?
Absolutely.
I will say, so the business idea that I have is I really am keen to help businesses Africanize. We know that there has been, for the last decade at least, a lot of interest in Africa. We see a lot of potential in Africa. It has a growing population. GDP growth has been significant, if uneven. But as businesses continue to expand onto the continent, and even as African businesses grow and start to operate in other African territories, there's a sense that we need to know more about the continent. And I really want to localize. I want to, I'm really tired of the sense of bringing outside cultures into our continent. I want businesses to feel like they belong here, that they have commercial success here, but that they also carry a heart for the social issues and challenges and successes of our own continents, and that they're able to connect deeply with the phenomenal energy that exists on this continent. And because I think that's one thing that we do have in abundance here. So I want to help businesses Africanize, and I want to do that by helping businesses to develop their leadership capability in an African sense, or Africanize the leadership in a way, which is a mindset thing for me. Through the knowledge of the continent, that for me is something that should be pervasive throughout the organization, and also to really connect with what is happening at the moment around the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is focused on intra-African trade and allowing us to do that by harmonizing trade policies and so forth. And I think there's a massive opportunity there. So one of the elements of this plan of mine that I am hatching presently is through an app, a gamified app. And I think it speaks to the knowledge element, right? So I think we don't know enough about the continent. And I think there are broadly three areas. There's the state of the economy, and that breaks down into different knowledge areas. There's the state of society, that breaks down into different areas such as creativity, learning and unlearning. And then there's social cohesion as broadly as a third broad knowledge area, which includes things like politics and history and inclusion and some of those other topics. So each of these three areas have these areas in between. But I want to create an app in which you can come in and then you can do a little quiz, and it tells you what your African IQ is, and then it takes you into a space and you can choose your learning plan. So do you want to be like on a high speed track or a mid or a slow speed, slow track, and then it allows you to go through different routes, because this is like a very cool continent to travel across, to kind of build your knowledge through these different areas. And so by doing that, you start to kind of feel more African, because you're connecting into some of the conversations and the culture and the topical issues, historical issues. And by doing that, we create this richness of being and of conversation that then leads back into those three objectives that I stated at the beginning. So that's where I'm at right now. It's highly conceptual. How do I start?
Wow. It's brilliant. Okay, so where do we start on this? So first of all, African IQ, I love that. That's great. So that's the new emotion. That's the new EQ. It's the AIQ, which is fantastic. The African IQ. Who would you say is your target audience for this? Of course, everyone. But apart from everyone, who do you think would you like to be the target audience?
I think primarily companies that are probably already operating on the continent, but that have the intention to establish themselves more broadly. If I look at some of the South African multinationals, certainly some of the companies that we work with have gone through this learning curve that started with, well, you know, we operate from South Africa and we export our knowledge to the continent. And we're learning that there is an enormous amount of wisdom embedded in the countries in which we operate that, in fact, we benefit from. If there's a degree. So, but that means that we need to Africanize our minds, that we need to really connect with this kind of African knowledge, this way of being African, not just South African as an example. And I think that experience is true for other companies that operate on the continent too. So I think primarily initially B2B, although I do see a very strong kind of social aspect to this as well, but as a secondary project, I think initially.
Yeah, I mean, when I was listening to it, I could definitely sort of see both sides to this. So it sounds to me like almost this is something that you should pitch to the British Council or sort of equivalent in South Africa or across Africa as well. Were you thinking of doing some sort of gamified application for this? Because it does sound like it does sound. How much learning hours do you think it would take for someone to go through this?
So that's a really great answer, right? At the moment, I'm improving my digital fitness. On a PwC app, I've put myself on a 1 hour a week plan, and I found that that's been really effective in increasing my grasp on 4 hour concepts and how those are applied presently and how they can be applied. So, you know, I think and that, by the way, is the Olympian track, supposedly. So I will declare that some of my ideas come from the way that particular app is configured.
No, that's a best practice app. Go for it.
Still,
absolutely. You know, in digital business is a Frankenstein business. You take different parts and put them together for your own creature.
Yes, yeah. But I will also say that I have a lot of original ideas here. Just say.
Of course, 100%.
But I find that even an hour a week, it does wonders for opening one's minds and generating possibilities. And I think if this is combined with some of the other ideas that I have around leadership development, then I think then you bring that into a conversational, connected thinking space also, which I think helps then to amplify the learning. Yeah,
so I mean, if you that in some ways you're crossing over quite a few different markets here in a way. So in one sense, you're in the corporate learning space in some ways, and you could sell this product. And we're talking about how you build it in a second. You could sell them. You could sell this there in a way on a subscription basis as a premium product. If you could put the learning content together, which in this case probably be the key task in terms of like putting the learning content and the learning design together and gamifying that a bit, how you actually build the app and make it look pretty and get some of the and also express visually how that's done. I think it'd be not difficult, or it's something that you would work with a designer to sort of translate that into the next concept. But in terms of like actually building, that probably would be the first step would be for you to map out what kind of learning you would want to put together here. And it doesn't really have to be very extensive. And then you could bite-size it in a gamified learning design and work with probably a designer to start with, and maybe partner up with somebody who's a UX or UI designer, and give them, do this as a project in a way to put that together. So that would be one way. The other way is that this is, of course, interesting for a lot of companies, and ideally we want as many people as possible to have access to that. And while sort of like the corporate side is great, maybe you have kind of like a freemium offering where there's something which is for the general business population, and then there is a premium offering which sort of looks at either specific countries or more deeper sort of business topics for people who are expats or are going across borders, and then use this app to familiarize themselves. So basically, you must be familiar with the Hofstede kind of like cultural thing. Yeah, so this will basically gamify the whole thing here for it. Another completely different take on this would be to maybe do something which is more directed at young people in some way. So this idea of what's your African IQ, I think is something that would resonate very well, not only in Africa, but of course also a lot here in Europe, in the US. We don't really get to hear very much, to be honest, about Africa, about South Africa. And most of the time when we get news, they don't tend to be particular good news. And the way how history and also culture is taught, we don't really learn a lot about African culture at all. And partially this is to do maybe with within Europe, there is a strong cultural funding all across the board in terms of where people try to fund and kind of like promote culture. There is far less funding available across Africa, and I also know in South Africa, which means we don't get much exposure to films, TV, music at all. And so the idea of what's your African IQ is a really good one. And maybe there's a bigger cultural piece to be done. And maybe it's even an app that is a short educational experience for children. One of my favorite apps that I used with my nieces and nephews is an illustration app by a US illustrator that just sort of like explores different concepts, and they love it. And typically the learning experience on there is not longer than maybe half an hour in terms of like going through things. But it strikes me that there is a huge potential to just do something which comes from South Africa, so is authentic, and just educates a bit more and increases the AIQ across the board. I think it would be something that I think could be quite interesting for a wider consumer audience if you were to look at these aspects as well, and not only look on the sort of like a business side of things, because it is hugely Africa is hugely underrepresented.
This has been hugely encouraging. Thank you. Free consulting. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Well, I have the pleasure of sitting in here on those ideas. It's fantastic. I'm like, wow. Why is nobody doing this? Why is nobody doing this? Where's my marimba?
And we have like 3 more conversations. We have like 3 more things to come through. Okay, people are popping now. Okay. How are you feeling, Norbert? Are you feeling hot? Do you need a brain massage? Are you good to go?
Yeah, I'm good to go. Yes,
you're good to go.
Wow.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
New energy. Received.
We've got it. Everybody's ready. Okay, fantastic. Focus. Owen Francis says, how does one, he says, I want to start to sell tech commodities into Africa, for example, printer cartridges, memory for phones, headphones, etc. And he wants to know, how do I decide where to start? Which African country do I start in? You know, systematically, what kind of ideas can we apply here?
Okay, so this is about selling tech commodities into Africa.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, counter question is: have you done this before? Have you sourced any of these sort of things before? I guess most of these things are being sourced anyway in Asia, in a way, and then imported. So effectively, you start an import business, go and presumably you're thinking of running this as an e-commerce store. So you're selling the goods there. I think that's a great opportunity to market and to brand. You can use existing brands. Maybe you can take some white labeled ones as well and create your own brand alongside that, so you can increase your margin as well. And yeah, I mean, as far as I know, this should just be a fantastic business opportunity in a way. So I still remember also from my PhD days where we also had colleagues from Africa, the PhD students. One has just gone back and opened a canned food business, which I think was tremendously successful. Another guy went back and introduced TomTom, sort of navigation systems in his home country, in Nigeria, which ended up being a huge success there. So bringing these products is great. I would say, if you can, because most of those products get produced in Asia, and in some ways then depends on how deep, what your ability is to source. If you're just starting, then maybe you might not have an ability to go out there and talk directly with people, and you might source through Alibaba or something like that. But let's say if you did source something through Alibaba, a mixture of using some well-known brands and then creating your own quality brand, which more or less is, all of those things are done by the same group of producers, so the quality will be high anyway. I think that could be also a smart thing to do, just to add your own branded stuff in there, which could be a little bit cheaper, but will mean a higher margin for you. And yeah, so look at this in both ways, and especially if it's sort of like printer cartridges. Okay, I mean, you're talking about a staple business here, in really, with kind of like printer cartridges, memory for phones, headphones as well. And I'm sure you're aware of, I would say, have a look at, I'm sure there are competitors already in the market. So there's lots of inspiration, and let's call it inspiration. Take a lot of inspiration of how people do this at the moment already for this kind of businesses. There, as far as I understand it, some of it is also turning this into repeat customers, where it's around printer cartridges. It's all about trying to get people to repeat the purchase and optimize that digitally. If it's around phone memories, it's a one more of purchase. So maybe have a look at which side you want to be on. Do you want to be on the repeat customer side? And when it's printer cartridges, ideally you turn this into some sort of subscription business, or something where you have to repeat customers. If it's phone batteries or other things which are maybe replaceables that you only replace once and not too often, then there might be a different way of looking at that volume. Okay.
Magic. There's one thing I would add, and this is, I was in Ethiopia for a month last year, and we're in a town called Harar, which is to the east of Ethiopia. And I was astonished to see how just there is the streets, and at night it is absolutely full to the brim with electronics that come in from the east. So I think it's important to just go and see as well. And so my suggestion also would be go and see, go travel, go see what exists on the continent, what the dynamics are, and then what that niche could be for you. Partly because it's a massive adventure, and partly because I think it will help you carve out your particular niche. So thank you very much for that. We've got lots of questions. So I think, Norbert, we're going to have to be fast. You ready? We got it. Okay, let's go. So the next question, this is a very interesting one. You're going to have to access your inner feminist here. Are you ready? So this one is from Zema Sokanyele. And Zema is also, She's been with us for a long time. So she says, menstrual hygiene management is such an under-researched area globally and very specifically in Africa. How would one go about leveraging tech to operate in this space that is so shrouded by taboos and a lack of research? She sells menstrual cups online and people are so reluctant to buy due to lack of knowledge, and they're reluctant to try new things. This whole area of femtech, as she calls it, as she coins it beautifully, it's also a small sphere in South Africa, and it's difficult to find people to work with in this space. And then Kiara's given us some good advice, and then Tommy's also given her advice, but like quite fast. But what are your
so I think I don't know too much about this space, but again. I've been to another tech accelerator, which is a short one, a 3-month program in Switzerland. It's called Kickstart Accelerator. And you've got a lot of big pharma, but also consumer product, fast-moving consumer good, big companies on there who are extremely interested in femtech. And the other side of that equation is that there's, this being Switzerland, there's a lot of foundations involved in this particular program as well, who have a remit to make impact. So I don't know what the situation is in South Africa but these programs are open for anyone from anywhere, and they are looking they're looking for this sort of ideas. So I would have thought that this particular idea would be probably a good fit for this program. And there you would be able probably to find, first of all, people who are interested in the product, in promoting the product and supporting that as a commercial proposition, and also investors. And the second is with foundations taking an interest in this topic. And many of them might have a remit to also give back and do things in developing countries. So I think you would have very good chances of finding someone there that's interested in the topic. And these foundations, they're not just interested in the promotion aspects of it, but they're also interested in the sociological and the research aspects in it. So they particularly are looking to fund, let's say, if you wanted to pilot test, figure out in a better way how you can promote the product locally and overcome any kind of adoption barriers that you're facing there, then I think you might find a group of people there who are very willing to work with you on this. And this is also, again, if we say talking about travel, I had not been, I'm originally from Austria, which is next to Switzerland. I'd never been to Switzerland before. What I will say is, I mean, there's a lot of big corporates headquartered in Switzerland, some of them nice, some of them a little bit more on the evil side as well. But overall, it is a place. It is a place that works like no other place I've seen before. So there are a lot of international organizations, some clever people in the universities there as well, who are very keen to do something with the money that sloshes around there. And there is generally a lot of money sloshing around that place. That particular program is called the Kickstart Accelerator, which is in Zurich, and they've got very good connections with those foundations. So have a look at them. That program pays for you to be 3 months in Switzerland. So you go there for 3 months. They network you locally with all of the people, and then you can go back. There's also something called the Co-Hatch collaborators, looking specifically at social impact ventures. And I don't know where you could go to in South Africa, because I haven't been local, but those would be places where I would go and talk with people who are interested in making impact, and especially also around femtech. Yeah.
I think that's a brilliant idea. I would love to hear 6-7 months down the line that somebody from our SME Sessions community really have succeeded in tapping into some of these international hubs. But locally, we have an incredibly well-developed innovation hub community Prekelt was one that I think Tommy posted earlier, and there are others. So ways to tap into those, I think, would really be helpful. And please share your experiences with us too, so that we know how to link with others and how to hook others up. We've got 2 more questions. Norbert, so the one is from Chietsan Tuli, who says, thank you for these invaluable sessions. You're so welcome.
Wow, thank you. That's very kind.
Yeah, they have been pretty awesome, I must say, for me too. I run a boutique accounting firm, and I'm an entrepreneurship advocate. One thing that I experience with most of our clients is a lack of financial literacy, which makes our job really difficult and sometimes perceived as invaluable. I'm not sure I quite understand. To change that perception, we will be launching monthly free webinars, yes, where we will tackle the problems that keep business owners up at night. In the medium to long term, we are looking to build business literacy e-learning course for small business owners. Okay, I'm not sure there's a question there. I think it's more an intention. But Chetsa, if you please, I mean, find us on Twitter, find me on LinkedIn, please, and let us know what you're doing. So happy to spread the message about what you're doing there, spread the news, and drive some traffic your way as well. That's absolutely brilliant work, and so true. And then our final Nokwazi Mzobe, who is a very good friend. And she says, I've been running a project that empowers play schools in our poorest communities. These schools operate on a very tight budget with school fees as little as 150 to 250 per month. I would like to create an impact fund or crowdfunding platform where investors or donors can contribute and contributors can choose to empower the different schools. How would I go about doing this?
Okay, so I'm making again some assumptions here. So first assumption is, or kind of like the model, are you looking to raise and have those investors from within South Africa, or are you looking to raise this globally? I guess that sort of would be the question.
Nokwazi, are you happy for us to bring you up on screen? Would that be okay? And Kaelo, will you, Nokwazi says yes. Kaelo, please, can
awesome.
you? Fantastic. So let's bring you up on screen and then we can talk to you. There we go. We've got Nokwazi with us. Nokwazi, if you'll bring your sound up, and if you'll bring your video up as well, then we've got you here.
Okay, and video.
Thank you so much and welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. So I'm looking for hopefully international funding, global funding. But I'm not only looking specifically for money. So for me, it would be, what I'm envisioning is creating almost mini, let's say, elevator pitches from all the different creches so they can tell their stories, and the contributors or the investors can either choose to pay the school fees of certain kids, cover the salaries of the teacher, or contribute X. So I'm not looking to create a huge fund that I will necessarily manage. What I want to also try to solve is this whole problem of the NPO space, of very little money actually going directly to the people who need it. At the same time, I see the platform evolving to something where the different ECD owners can connect with other ECD owners and cross-learn from each other. Because what I found as well, that in this space, a lot of them are under-resourced and don't have the necessary knowledge to even stimulate the kids. So I think there's an opportunity for them of some sort of peer-to-peer learning. So it goes beyond just a pure impact investment platform.
Right. So I mean, in this case, you first of all, a fantastic idea. I think you've got 2 or 3 different businesses here as well. Sort of, and probably it's best to go stage by stage. So if you're moving into and I completely get, sort of, you need a couple of things, right? So you need to get money in, right? So that's one problem. The other problem is that you're solving is the money has to go to the right places as well. Yes. So in terms of like people who donate, the money, are you looking for, again, it would be good to sort of like do on your side to do a bit of a segmentation of whether you're looking to get big money in from maybe corporate social responsibility budgets, so where somebody gives you a larger amount of money and you have fewer conversations, or you're doing something which is relatively more on the crowdfunded end of things, where you have got lots of different donors who maybe give a smaller amount, and you're using in a way a platform to pool the money in this way. From a UK perspective, if you're looking at the latter thing, then probably again you would do another sort of a segmentation, and maybe look at parents who send the kids to private school over here, where they will be paying somewhere between £5,000 to £20,000 at the top end for their kid per year to go to private school, and surely they should be able to donate a certain amount of money, each one of them, and we're talking about millions of people here, for somewhere to go to sort of support school children somewhere else. So similar to schemes that you already see with airline companies, where you say, do you want to donate £1 for the environment? I think it should maybe, if you were to look to build this up into a big scalable thing, then you could look at every time that somebody is paying their private school kids school fee, an automatic amount gets sort of transferred over to you. So that would be one way how you could go about it. In between those two things, you have to ask yourself, how much time will the people have to look and evaluate different propositions and then decide where the money should be spent? So very often with how the charitable sector works is that they want to trust you with the money to help them make the decision. If they have to evaluate themselves as well where they have to put their money, it might require time that they might not have. Some of them will be interested, but if you draw kind of like a Venn diagram of people who have the money and also have got the time to evaluate lots of different propositions, if you want them to do both, the group becomes narrower. If you make it easier for them to donate by helping to decide, then that's good. But that's not to say that you couldn't run, if you want to complicate the whole thing, you could run a crowd decision process on the other end of the side of the platform, where you're dealing with schools bidding for this money, where you have got maybe something going on locally in terms of people voting where the money should be spent on, or crowdsourcing that decision-making process as well. So you don't have to take care of that as well. And then what sort of like, in terms of like building the whole thing, maybe I can connect you in with a gentleman I know who runs a crowdfunding platform that they're sort of giving to universities for their students to run different crowdfunding processes. And he's got a lot of experience in this space. Maybe that's the connection that I could make. And he could talk you a little bit through in terms of like what they have done, if there is anything that they could share, maybe in terms of a technology platform that's ready to use for you as well. Someone who's very socially minded as well. And I'm sure would be very happy to have a chat with you to talk you through your idea.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you, Nokwazi.
Okay, brilliant.
Thanks.
And this brings us to the end. And Norbert.
Okay.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you for having me on this. I can't believe it's over.
No, I can't believe
again.
it's either. For now. We always just say for now. I want to say to you that this was a fantastic format. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think we really picked up speed there. You have a wonderful mind and you have so much experience that you shared with us. And I think that was incredibly valuable. So thank you very much. Free consulting.
I'm coming on these sessions and I'm always walking away with so much encouragement from you. It's I really would say thanks a lot for having me. It's been a pleasure. And thank you everyone who's contributed and shared their ideas here today. It's always also an act of boldness and courage to come out and share your ideas with others, and in a way be vulnerable and be prepared to sort of like take feedback. So huge thank you to everyone who's done that, to you, including you, Louise. It's not an easy thing to do that. But hopefully it's when you've done it, you also get a little bit of love back from the universe. And I can see people have commented on each other's ideas and open doors. And I think that's, again, goes to the point that it is good to share ideas and talk to each other about what you want to do, and people will be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Very rich. And then my massive thank you to the SME community, to those of you that have been here, that we're here today, to those of you that have attended many of these over a long time, to those of you that said today that you found inspiration and that you created some new ideas. We are mightily inspired. I always love being a South African. I think I love being a South African a little bit more today, and I'm very proud of being an African in particular. And then, of course, I'm very proud of being part of the Henley universe that includes people like yourself, Norbert, and everybody that's here. You're all part of our universe. To the team that makes this happen, a very, very special thanks to you. So in the background, we have Kaelo and Graham, who has been pulling the technological levers. Thank you so much for holding us safely through this whole journey. We have John Martin, we have Valencia, and Nazir in particular, who has helped to bring everything that we've been able to put together, and then a fast fading memory, also a marketing team. So, but to the team, thank you very much for allowing us to bring this to you. I would like to play out, I know it's a little bit later than usual, but it is our last session, hello. I'm gonna play out with 2 songs, why? Because we can, yes. So be on the listen out for it. So I'm gonna start the first one, and then I'm gonna play a little bit of it, and then I'm gonna go back to one of the ones that we played early on. And why? Because you're the boss. So just remember that. So, okay, we're going to try this. So we're going to start with the first one, and we're going to start now. And now.
It's the kids, baby.
Dangote babalao, Simba babalao, Chibu babalao, Mondi babalao, Zombi babalao, Makufuli babalao, Makonda babalao, Wasafi chabalao, Moko mani kopo, leo ndani tokesha bobo, Wata samazia koko moko, Moja baridi moja moto, Mechoka ati, Unataka lala, Tungi limezidi, Tuzime muziki, Wanagisambugile, Sambamba, Abo vipi na bamba, Inogile, inatamba, Basi chani kamusamba, Wataweza kweli, kushindana nasi, Hata wakiungana, Matusi kututukana, Dangote babalao, Simba babalao, Chibu babalao, Mondi babalao, Zombi babalao, Makufuli babalao, Makiembe babalao, Wasafi chabalao.
Ati selema, ati selema, Mandinga gema, Ishimo medema,
Amefusibifu mseleleko,
tumemkwepa,
amebaki maswema neko,
wanamcheka,
kisha kuwashe, cheza kama monkey, kunjo kidangi, tumewachapa,
kidude,
akichomoki,
kidude,
kimewanasa,
kidude,
wana tapa,
kidude, Chisika no button, Chisika no button, Chisika no button, Chisika no button, Chisika no button,
Kalobotan, Chisu Kalobotan, Dangote Babalao, Simba Babalao, Chibu Babalao, Mondi Babalao, Sombi Babalao, Makufuli Babalao, Majaliwa Babalao, Wasafi Jamalao. Suka kipanda na ile shaka na bo achawa. Suka kipanda na ile bukta na bo achawa.